It was a mess.
I was developing a habit that whenever I would take notes, I would then take a picture of it with my phone, because if I was expecting to find that piece of paper the next day,
you will not.
And then if I would forget to take that picture right then, whatever I wrote on the paper it's good as trash.
Okay. And you also use it to design and everything, or just for... Yeah.
This is what I use instead of paper.
Yes.
Anything I would use paper for, I use that now.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Bueno, pues saludos, gente. Así empezamos. We start like this. We always start
in a different way.
Without saying that we start already.
Yeah.
Bienvenidos a estas pláticas que estamos teniendo aquí a 1, 2, 3 o 4 jugadores, versión especial Mega XP. Y es un honor para nosotros que está con nosotros David Turczi. David Turczi, thank you for being here. Para quien no lo conoce, pues es diseñador de un montón de juegos. You are designer for a lot of very known games, some like Kitchen Rush, yeah.
Not the one I would start the list with.
Okay. So forget that.
No, don't forget that, because it's a fun game, but it's the exception to the rule for my kind of games.
And I have 2 that I would like you to sign. So.
Not that game.
Also Anachrony?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
Do you have Anachrony?
No, I don't have Anachrony. But Giovanni has one, and he already signed it. Tekenu, Rush MD, Dice Settlers, still this game, and a lot of solo modes from another games, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That I do a lot.
Yeah. You do more solo games than...
Well, I'm not a solo gamer myself at all. This whole thing came from, expanding the market and trying to get the community
involved
to keep them coming back. And then because I was one of the first people to do these, like Morten Monrad Peterson invented the concept of autonomos for viticulture and then improved it on site and Gaia project. But Anachrony came out not long after that, and it's sort of like publishers started asking me, because at the time there was nobody else to ask but Morten or me. So, and I got lucky because people liked the first few games that I did the solos on, and then some of them volunteered to keep testing, and now I have people who've been regularly and repeatedly working with me on solo modes for like over 5 years now, and they turned from volunteers to paid developers who now co-credited with me over several games. And for me, solo design is more of a consulting business, if anything. These days, I spend a day or 2 on most solo modes. It's like I learn the game, I ask a few questions about what do you think about when you play, what do you care about your opponents doing, then how certain can you know what I'm gonna do on my turn, that kind of things. Then I propose a system, I give it to one of my expert developers, they play it twice, they send back saying I hate this, but that works. And they say, I think we should try something like this, remember that other solo mode and do something like this. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds good, go for it. And then they play it for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and then they send back the notes to me, I type up the rulebook, and then we give it to the publisher and done. So solo modes to me is an engineering process. It's these days it's like on average more than 1 a month. So
it's very common here in Mexico that I want to buy that game, but I don't have anyone to play it.
Which is exactly because there is this old preconception that board games must be a social hobby.
Yeah.
And there is definitely a social element to board games, and love it, and 99% of my social interactions with humans are about board games, but it is not the only thing to love about board games. There is very much the mental exploration of the I get it feeling to love about board games. And yes, sure, you can get it from video games, from some video games, but the tactile feeling is not always there. The staring at the monitor is not always a positive. And because of that, solo gaming is not something you do when you don't have friends around. There is a reason to do solo gaming. And even though I myself barely ever play solo games, even most of my own solo modes I have never played, but I understand why there's a demand for it, and because I happened to be one of the people who figured out how to do what many, not all, there are many people in the community who passionately dislike the kind of solo modes I do, and I understand why they dislike it, and they're not wrong, they just want a different kind of experience. So I look at what I do as kind of a community stabilizing service that is good for the publisher because he can sell more, good for me because I can charge okay money for a very little amount of work, and good for the customer because they can play more games than what the capacity of their gaming group, if at all, can take. Plus, they can play heavier games than what they could train their friends for. So it allows for more exploration. So I think of myself primarily as a game designer, and the solo modes are almost like a marketing. It's there so that people have heard of my name. It's there so that I can Trojan horse myself into publishers. It's like, hi, I will do a solo mode for you, and then once I've been through that, then it's like, now let's work together. So.
So first of all, you started like you are using that solo game to start with touching in other companies. Which one's your first solo game that you think, this game might be played solo game?
Well, Anachrony was the first time I ever did a solo mode, which was my own game, but it was, when we were preparing for the Kickstarter campaign many years ago, I think it was 7 years ago or so, then, was when Viticulture came out, and nobody knew what real solo modes were at the time. So I was like, let's do a stretch goal of solo mode, and the team, Mindclash team were looking like, solo mode, what's that and why do we care? I was like, I don't know, just give me a few more components and let me figure something out. And I went and played Viticulture. I made notes of what I liked about how Viticulture was translated into a solo mode, what I didn't like about how it was translated into a solo mode, and then I tried to do that myself. And then the shuffling cards I did was fiddly in one way, it worked very nicely in another way, and then I translated that into the board with the moving tokens, and the idea was born. And then the next 2 or 3 or 4 games that I did solo modes for were all invented on a case-by-case basis, but after a while the pattern started to emerge. And I think it was Foundations of Rome, shortly followed by Railways of the World, where we got to a point where there was like a recipe on how to make the solo mode, that the put out 3 cards, when it's the bot's turn, flip one that says which of the 3 to resolve that, slide and refill, and either reshuffle the deck after a certain number of turns, or that's the end of the game or something like that. And that pattern has been used by, I don't know, more than a dozen solo modes since. So it's like now it's almost the experience that me and my team are selling that we can pull from. We've just recently completed recently came out the solo mode for Castles of Burgundy. Like John and Nick, my 2 lead developers, they did most of the work. Sure, I helped and give them pointers, but at this point it's more of a team effort, and my name is more of the brand name and the quality control than anything else. Or 2 days ago, the new solo mode for Terraforming Mars was announced, which same Nick Show designed a fan-made new bot for it and he uploaded it on BGG, and I read his work and I was like, no way, this is way too good to be a fan-made bot. So I just grabbed it and marched into the offices of the publisher, and I said, if you were to hire us, this is how I would make this even better than this already great solo mode. And they did, and now it's announced as an official expansion for Terraforming Mars, with credited to Nick Show.
With your name, right? Yeah.
With your name, yeah, of course. And
do you think every all board game can have a solo game?
Very much no. First of all, any game where information is a resource can almost definitely not have an automa-like solo mode. I call automa-like solo modes, which are like simplified abstractions, where the job of the solo mode is to simulate a competitive opponent. The school example is, funny I should mention it, is Twilight Struggle. Twilight Struggle cannot have an automa-like opponent. I'm not saying it can't ever have a solo mode, but if it does, and if it will not be an automa. It will either be a classic flowchart, or it needs to be a trained neural network, like what they've done for Through the Ages, or or it needs to be a different game using the mechanisms of trial and struggle or something like that. So any game where information itself is a resource, by definition can't have. That also eliminates most social deduction games right out of the gate. You can't teach an automat to play resistance with you.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
functionally impossible.
Yeah.
Then
Take that, Jason. We are not going to have a solo game for you, okay?
then there are games where you can make a solo, an automat for it, but you will regret it. And that has happened to me a few times. Any game where there is like a map with lots of semi-identical adjacencies,
Okay.
and whether you would move your unit here or here depends on 20 tiny little things based on what the other players are doing and how many cubes of this is here and that is there.
Get it.
If you're expecting the bot to intelligently move his piece from here to either there or there, that is a nightmare to abstract.
Okay.
And in some games we can cheat this way or that way. Some of the games we can simplify it down to a number of flowcharts, but half the audience is already screaming that there's too many flowcharts to look up, too many priority lists. So it's like, so there is that borderline where it's like we can make an automa for it, but half our audience wishes we didn't. But if we don't make a solo at all, they cry for a different reason. So it's like lose-lose. My method works the best for Euros that have singular primary interactions. What I mean is, singular is that one or two things that I care about. Anachrony is I take that spot.
Okay.
Camp and Evie, who goes first and which spot do you take?
Maybe Hansa Teutonica, for example. I don't know if you know that game.
I haven't played it recently enough to be
okay.
In Foundations of Rome. Which card do you take from the market? So any game where one particular thing is the main thing you care about.
Okay.
That's what makes it a singular interaction. And the primary interaction is that I do it because you will care about the output and not as a side effect of what I do, I happen to influence you. That's a secondary interaction if I just happen to interact with you. So any game where there is like, we've done solo mode for all of the T games with Daniel Tascini. And for example, Trismegistus, wonderful game, but you can draft a die from 5 different globes, and sure, the actual value depends on where the others drafted from, but you kind of can draft from anywhere at any time, and you can kind of buy anything at any point, but which of them is slightly better than the other depends on what other 5 things the other people bought. So it has a million tiny little secondary interactions, but you never draft one die just to screw with the other player. Okay. So none of the interactions were primary and none of the interactions were singular, which means we could make a bot for it, but it didn't matter much. And it was very visible that bot was working a lot less well than a bot for any other game in the T-series. And it's not because we were suddenly dumb and we were making bad bots, or not because the game was bad. The game is great. It's because it was not so suitable for this kind of system.
Okay.
Amigos, interrumpo brevemente para darle las gracias a todos los que hacen posible estas entrevistas. A Devir México, a MXP, a Mesas de Juego Acomodado, a Marlúdico y a nuestro amigo Gio, que nos ayudó con la logística. Si les están gustando estas entrevistas, denle like, compartan y suscríbanse a nuestro canal.
So you were talking about a lot of Euros. What do you think about the war games? Cardboard war games and the other miniature war games. Do you think they might have or they could have any solo mode? First of all, do you like those type of games?
I like the border, the what I call conflict Euros. Games there, like I have designed 3 conflict Euros myself as well, but there are a bunch I like. Sekigahara comes to mind, which is clearly a conflict Euro that I really like. Wir sind das Volk is one of my favorite games of all time. Again, a conflict euro. So those are games that are about a warlike situation.
Okay.
They are designed theme first like a war game.
Okay.
But they use low randomness euro mechanisms, and they don't carry the hallmarks of old school war game design of roll to resolve, of lookup tables, of terrain modifiers, blah 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 blah. All the things that the Eurogamers truly don't care about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is not a quality judgment, because if you enjoy that, more power to you. But the school of thinking I come from can't deal with that.
Okay.
And yes, those so the conflict euros can be abstracted along certain lines that many of them could have solo modes. If somebody were to hire me to do a solo mode for Wir sind das Volk, it'd be a super hard job, but I would love to do it because it is theoretically possible. My first two conflict euros, Days of Ire and Knights of Fire. Knights of Fire had hidden blocks in it. Like not unlike Hammer of Scots, but like a bit more abstract because it was a bit more Euro than that. And I managed to make a solo mode for it where the bot decided which of your hidden pile of stacks to attack without being able to remember what it saw, simply because what it did was that if your piece was face up, it had a priority list which of the face up pieces to attack, and if not, then it estimated based on the size and the location of the pile. So it pretended to guess.
Okay.
So
Got it.
because it was simple enough, because it was Euro influenced, that I could abstract it.
Okay.
If it was a true simulation of Napoleonic warfare, then where do I draw that line to abstract it? So I think in order to make an Automa-like solo for your kind of war games, it would have to lose what makes it your kind of war games.
Got it. Yeah. I was asking you this because I know I love Blood and Plunder, which is one of a piracy war game, and actually they have a solo game. I don't like the solo game for war games, so that's why I was asking you.
One war-ish game, conflict Euro adjacent war game that I have tried to play solo was Labyrinth, War on Terror.
Labyrinth, yep.
And that is the example of a full flowchart AI that is not a automa. They did not abstract anything out. They just taught the 80% of the game to a giant flowchart.
Okay.
And that is something that I know I don't enjoy running, and I assume many gay people coming from the Euro end don't enjoy running. But the moment somebody coded a simple app where you can say, this is how the board looks like and this is the card drawn, and the app said, okay, this is what the flowchart says you should do, then it was a perfectly fun, playable solo mode. So you can tweak the lines in a way to make it a fun experience on a game-by-game basis. But my experience with war games is not wide enough to speak authoritatively on any one game's solo mode.
Fair enough. So, okay, talking about designing. Yeah, because we're not talking about any more solo games, okay? So, what was your first game that you designed?
The first published design of mine was actually a lead design of a friend of mine.
Not published. The first one you designed.
The first one you designed.
I did not know that I wanted to be a game designer.
Okay.
I have tweaked games before. I have designed extra cards for Battlestar Galactica. I have designed extra agendas for Martin Wallace's Ankh-Morpork.
And that was just for you?
But that was just for me. I didn't set out to be a designer.
Okay.
The whole becoming a designer thing happened when a good friend of mine, Mihai Vinca, came home from his family holiday, and he said, I was bored and I couldn't teach my family Battlestar Galactica because they're not gamers enough. So I designed some simpler hidden traitor game for them. And do you guys want to play it? And we played, and it's like, this is fun. Can I help you improve it?
Okay.
And me being the obsessive me, for the next year or so, every Friday game night, the first hour or two, we were playing that game.
Okay.
And in the end, we agreed that, all right, let's try and get this game published. We knew nothing about the industry, nothing about anything. And a year or two later, using my usual ammo, I got lucky and I met the right kind of people and showed them the game, and it was very unique. It wasn't necessarily great or elegant, but it had a very different central idea that Mihai had, and
it worked.
Yeah, that's
it could have worked
that's the
better,
main
but
question.
on that level,
question,
on that we were all beginners at the time level, it worked. And it got signed. And it came out in 2014 under the name Redacted, which is very funny because it looks like the title was redacted, so it's about spies. And after that, because we're from Hungary, and after that, the next year in the Hungarian board game designers community meeting, two people approached us saying that they're working on their own game and they want to start a company and self-publish it, and seeing as how we are the only published Hungarian designers, do we want to look at it and give them any advice? And I've played their game, and that game was Turczi. And I was like, holy crap, this game is massively better, not only whatever I designed, but almost better than any other Euro game I've ever played. How about instead of me giving you advice, I start working for you?
Okay.
And while after Turczi was quite successful on Kickstarter at the time, I showed them my working prototype of Anachrony. And they said, we love it, can we suggest some changes to it? And that's how our partnership was born. And when in 2016-17 Anachrony came out, and it jumped into the top 50 almost immediately, that put me on the map, and that put them from successful startup to big player suddenly, and then we lifted each other up and we learned everything on the job, and that started opening doors to me left and right, and yes, I had a lot of affinity for it, yes, I enjoyed this process, but the fact that essentially my second proper game was a worldwide success allowed me to interact with people far above my weight group, and because of that I could learn much faster than just failing on my own. And within a year and a half of that, I quit my job and I was doing this professionally.
Oh my God.
And from then on, it was a lot easier to do, because if you have 5 days a week to bumble around, you can get a lot more failing and learning done than if you just have 2 evenings a week.
What did you do before?
I was a software engineer.
Software engineer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So actually, yesterday we asked Jason, what do you need to be a good and great designer, game designer? And the first thing he told us is that you need thick skin.
Yes.
You agree on that?
Yes, but not just thick skin, but self-inflicted thick skin. The moment I stopped designing bad games was the moment I investigated my own processes of how I dislike other people's games.
Okay.
And I remember to this date when I, as a barely anybody, started criticizing before publication Teotihuacan. Daniel Teixeira was already a famous designer. Every other testing group was going, oh my God, this game is amazing. And my testing group was going, we don't like this game. There are problems with it. We want to fix it. Okay. And the way I could analytically approach it, and in the end, our suggestions were like these tiny changes. Like there were no real problems because the game is amazing. But my group and I, we felt that there was tiny things to fix and that was bugging us. And the way I could analyze it and find those problems and put them into words and feed them to the publisher, and the publisher would understand it and make tiny but very effective changes to the game, was like, why am I not doing this to my own games?
Okay.
And at that point, learning that the thick skin is otherwise known as kill your own loves, it's to be able to analyze what's wrong with the thing you're doing, and instead of insisting that, oh, you can salvage it, it's like, is it good? Is it not good? Is there anything worth saving in it? And within a year of starting to do it professionally, the number of terrible amateurish designs I was designing started declining because back then it took me 10, 15, 20 play tests to realize that I was doing something wrong, and that number started dropping to the point where today I can stop a project in one play test because I can just look at it like, no, I need to stop working on this project, this is idiotic. And that is the self-inflicted thick skin is because if I am bold enough to criticize somebody else's game, then I should criticize my own game with the exact same vigor and
of course,
the exact same meanness. And it doesn't matter how good my idea is. What matters is how bad the rest of it is and what's worth saving. And what the thing that is worth saving, is it as good as I think it is? And is there anything wrong with it? And could it be better? So it's easier, like the job isn't to look for what works, the job is to look for what doesn't work.
Okay.
And the game is done when you don't find anything that doesn't work.
Okay.
So it's like auto-criticizing yourself and your own game. Yeah.
Yes. And how well and how effectively people criticize their own games, that's just practice. Because every designer tells every new designer is like, oh, you've played your game 20 times and you want to pitch it to a publisher, go play it another 50 times.
Sure.
They should, because they don't have the experience to notice the problem in two play tests, which is why what I do is not applicable to them, because for me, I need to create sellable products and I need to create a new thing one step to the right. And if I can't tell within two plays that this is a new thing one step to the right, then this is not a new thing one step to the right, and then I need to stop it right now. So that's why most of my projects are in a pitch meeting level after under 10 plays, usually under 5 plays even, which they do get hundreds of playtests afterwards, but that's a development thing, not a design thing. So these are all. And this all comes down to self-criticism, because if I spent the playtest going, oh, so cool thing I designed, then I would be there for 20 more playtests, slowly realizing the problems. But by brutalizing the game and by playing with people who can beat me in every game, every time, and asking them, does this work? Can you break this? What about this? I enjoyed this, but I think there might be something wrong with it. Can you pinpoint it for me? So like aggressively looking for the bad things makes everything so much easier to get right eventually.
When you look for a tester, a player, you
I
go
cultivate
to
them, yes.
you go to which type of community? The guys that hate you, or the guys that are well known as
or maybe close friends.
Or close friends.
Previously, but I lived in London, UK for 8 years. There is a huge board game club there. Basically, I recruited people around me I went there, I put out the games I enjoy playing, and anybody who could play that for fun with me and keep up with me and present a challenge to me, then got invited to play the games for work with me. And if they could contribute to the work part, then they kept getting invited back for that. If they couldn't, but they were nice people, then they could still become friends. So it wasn't like a job interview, but some of them did turn into jobs. When I moved to the Netherlands, which was I moved there like the month before the pandemic, so it's like, hey, I'm here. So for a moment, I was panicking. There's like, holy crap, I'm never gonna see a living human being ever again. But then,
and now you're in Mexico.
But then I got lucky again, because there's a student association of board gamers there, and they had like a lot of meetups, and many of them are like hardcore Magic players and stuff like that. And my partner was a member of that club. So she was like, all right, let's invite a few of them over. And it was literally like 4 of them came over, we're on a play test. Next week, 3 of them came over, we're on a play test. Next week, two of them came over. And then 1 of the 4 are now getting paid work from me every week. So it's like, it took me 2 years to build them up, and then started the second game group for fun, and then the players who can reliably beat me there every week are now getting added to the other playtesting group because they have a viewpoint that I can learn from. So they need to have the game taste that somewhat aligns to me. They need to hold their own, both talking and beating me up in games, and then the rest is just practice.
Have you ever been in one of these conventions with one of your new designs and just throw it out to the people? Hey, do you want to play my game? Here's my new design. Have you ever do that?
I used to go to like game design meetups way earlier in my career. These days I don't really do it, mostly because of that whole accelerated testing that I said earlier. I don't like, a game is either so early in the process that you can't even play a full game of it, and all I'm doing is looking for what to keep and what to burn of the game, and other people, anyone outside of my cultivated testing group, is essentially useless for that because they'll have their own ideas, and that's not what I need. Or the game is already with the publisher being fine-tuned, and at that point they are too late to help. At that point I just need players to give me data and play it 30 times and then tell me which of the factions are overpowered and whatever, but that's development work. Okay. So these days I put my games in front of the public more as a marketing thing than as a game designer thing. Got it. And I love doing that. I love the moment when my new game like lights up their eyes, like, I get it, oh my god, I can do that, and that's an amazingly good feeling. But that's not a game designer's job. That's a game product making marketing.
The marketing job. Okay.
And that's what I'm doing here this week as well, and I love it every time I explain the game. And you can see that a heavier player can understand it after 3 turns what they're doing. It's like, huh. So
between all your games that you designed, which one's your favorite?
Kitchen Rush.
No. That's cut it out.
Which one I think is the best is always the last ones, because I force myself to learn from my past mistakes, and anything that was good enough 2 years ago is where I start today, and I need to get better than that. Which one I am the most proud of are the unusual ones that I don't think anyone would have done, like Knights of Fire or Defense of Procyon. Those are the games that, like, commercially they are like the tiniest of my games, but they are stuff that are mine, that are I edit some, like they are the art projects, to put it that way. But design skill wise, always the last ones are where it's at, and my brain is always focused on the next one, the one that you haven't even heard about. So that's the one I'm excited to work on more, because I want to make it even better. So, and then of course the anomaly in the system is Anachrony, which is one of my old games. It is very mainstreamy in the Euro world, but it is a super duper hyper hit. So I am also very proud of that. But so those are the three kind of ways I can like a game. I can like a game because it was unusual, but I managed to do it. I can be proud of a game because I feel like I got to be a better game designer on it, or because it fulfilled its promise and became as successful as it needed to be.
It's like all your sons. You don't have any preference.
Each of them have different beauties.
We have a lot more questions, but we have to get going. We have to get going.
I can talk forever.
I know yesterday you were telling me that you can talk and talk.
Okay, last one. What did you think about Mexico? Is it your first time in Mexico City?
Yes, it is my first time, but I only had like half a day to tourist, which obviously I just went to Teotihuacan with the box cover in my hand to take all the silly pictures. So, but that was beautiful.
You went to Lucha Libre, right?
I did not.
You didn't? Oh my God.
The sports and spectacles and loud places is not really my kind of thing. But because we've done recently Imperium Classics and Legends and its sequel Horizons, we've been doing, Nigel and I, we've been doing quite a lot of historical research. And Classics already has the Olmec deck in it, and Legends will have another the Central American deck that I'm not spoiling for you yet,
Oh,
unless
awesome.
we've already released it online, so I don't
Okay.
remember. So we've done quite a bit of historical research on it, which always reignites my interest in
And
the
you
topic.
enjoy that then?
So
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that
Okay.
so seeing the fairly well preserved ruins of the things that I've been reading about is always very exciting.
Exciting. Okay. Awesome.
Well, thank you very much again, David, for being here. Y gracias a todos si llegaron al final de este video y nos vemos en una edición más. Adiós.
Adiós. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
That
you
was
so
fun.
much.